Greetings, children. Today we are going to start with the other chapter of Class 10, A Triumph of the Surgery by James Herriot. Here the protagonist is a small pet dog. The dog was owned by the rich Mrs. Pumphrey. His name was Tricky. He is pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. Simultaneously, he falls seriously ill, and his mistress consults a vet. Does the vet perform an operation at all? Was that a true surgery? Does the dog recover? Let us know. Before moving ahead, let us have an address of the author. James Alfred Wiggett was born on 3rd October 1916. He had died on 23rd February 1995. He was known by the pen name James Herriot and was a British veterinary surgeon and writer who used his many years of experiences as a vet to write a series of books, each consisting of stories about animals and their owners. The following story is also going to tell us about the owner, Mrs. Pumphrey, and her dog, Tricky. The story at a glance. The story is about Tricky, a dog who is the pet of a rich lady named Mrs. Pumphrey. She loves her dog very much and is unable to refuse him anything he wants. Tricky is fond of eating cream cakes and chocolates. So, one day when Mrs. Pumphrey is out with Tricky for a walk, the narrator sees them and stops to talk. While talking to Mrs. Pumphrey, he realizes that she has been overfeeding Tricky and also had been giving him things that he shouldn't eat at all. Due to such food which is eaten by Tricky, Tricky had started looking like a bloated sausage. Soon Tricky got unwell and Mrs. Pumphrey had to call Mr. Herriot, here the narrator, for her help. She does not want to send him away, but the only way suggested by Mr. Herriot is to get him hospitalized for 15 days. Then the story unfolds into how he gets well. So now, children, let us know, was it actually the truth that Herriot had made for Mrs. Pumphrey and for Tricky? Or was it all an attired lie? Was it at all a surgery? What was the surgery, or was it a surgery at all? It was never a surgery of the dog, children. Instead, it was the surgery of the mistress's frame of mind that needed a vehement sculpting, so that the dire consequence might not kill the ailing life within the dog. Now, children, you might be asking that why did a dog need a surgery at all? Or perhaps why would the doctor choose to lie at all? No, the dog never required a surgery. Instead, the dog needed a better diet, and Mrs. Pumphrey would never had done so. Why? Her overlove, her overcare had taken the form of excessive comfort, of ill food, ill diet that she had proportioned equally in the form of her love. The gush of love that had fallen through the course of her love and care had actually made the little dog fall into a vehement ailment, thus falling sick. The comparison and the contrast of Tricky in the beginning of the story and finally in the end of the story. In the beginning of the story, Tricky is shown inactive, fat, unfit, and unhealthy due to the overfeeding done by her mistress. He seems to be a very lazy dog, but his condition was not like this before, unless her mistress makes him eat all of his favorite dishes, as I have told you before. His condition becomes worse, and therefore it makes her mistress very tensed about him. and afterwards she takes an initiative to send Tricky to a hospital so that he can get his old health back. Now what happens during the end of the story? Tricky gets his real and old condition back. He becomes fit and healthy, and it is all because of the vet, Mr. Harriet, who makes Tricky avoid eating unhealthy food. In the hospital, Tricky is not given all the luxurious food when there was no hospital at all. It was an attired heaven, an attired paradise where Tricky actually made a lot of friends. Tricky was not given all the luxurious food that he used to have back in Mrs. Pumphrey's place. He was forced to practice exercise every day. The doctor limits his diet, and to maintain Tricky's diet, intervals had been made to serve him food, and this is the reason which had made Tricky fit and healthy. How did the surgery find a triumph? Okay. The maids were woken up and asked to get out of all Tricky's stuff. His stuff included things like his daybed, night bed, favorite cushions, toys, rubber rings, breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, and a snack bowl. So students, I guess you get enough of the vehement love he was suffering from. The love was overpowering his little body that bloated itself into a huge sausage. Mr. Harriet knew that he could suffice this little dog, though not with much, but with enough. So much stuff won't fit in his car, so he started rushing things. As the doctor was leaving with Tricky, Mrs. Pumphrey threw a lot of coats that Tricky used to wear in the car. As the narrator was turning the car on the turn, he saw through the rear mirror that everyone was crying. He patted the little helpless animal, who responded by wagging his tail. Who might know, perhaps he was going to his real place he wanted to all these days. By then, Harriet had already chalked out his plan. Sometimes a lie can save a truth to fall into place. Yes, children, the plan was that the surgery would be keeping the dog in a strict diet and allowing it to play, run, jump, fall. In short, exercise as much as his body needed. Too much of care and comfy had eaten the better of him and had added adipose in him. This gave the little dog the form of a sausage. To pull the dog out of the luxurious life, which was actually venomous for him, the narrator Harriet decided to frame a better lie. The lie of the surgery of hospitalizing him for 15 days. Why was the lie important? Children, during the culmination, you must know this truth of the lie. So, the lie was important to be shelved on the correct place of commitment, because otherwise the mistress of Tricky would not have allowed Tricky to puff a sigh of relief from the beautiful cage of comfort. The diet was actually eating up the span of the dog, and to erase that off, the doctor had to ornate a better lie to coerce the loving mistress to allow Tricky with him. Thus ends the story, thus finding Tricky's cure, heralding an end to the story. The end.